Ponderings of the Priest. We have been pondering together how it is that we can all learn to get along. And this week we're going to look at loving our neighbor. Last week we talked about loving God, and now we're going to talk about loving neighbor, all as components of figuring out how to all get along on this planet. So loving our neighbor, when we truly look at it, can be a very difficult thing when we are really talking about what Jesus is talking about in loving our neighbor. So that takes us to the first question of who is our neighbor? And the Sadducee infamously asked that question, the response to which was the story of the Good Samaritan. And so our neighbor, as Jesus teaches us, is the guy in the ditch. Is the homeless guy, is the hungry guy, is the guy standing on the street corner begging for money, is the alien among us, the refugee, people who make us uncomfortable. It is our actual neighbors who live next door. It's our family members, it's our friends. They're all our neighbor, everybody. Everybody is our neighbor, basically. And so when you look at what does it mean to love them then, that can be really hard because the fact of the matter is people don't all get along. So how do we learn to love them? First is the golden rule from Jesus. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, we get into a little trouble there because what happens is, because we don't love ourselves, and we'll talk about that next week, we are okay with people treating us badly, so then we're okay with treating other people badly. And so we need to, next week, look at what it means to love ourselves. But in the meantime, part of what can feed into this is selflessness. You know, what goes along with loving? First is selflessness. And that goes back to loving God above all else, to the elimination of our selfishness and self-centeredness and self-absorption, and to stay focused on God. So selflessness, compassion, to put ourselves in someone else's place, to say, but for the grace of God, that could be me. And to, as best as we're able, because it's not always easy, to stop being so judgmental of other people. We judge others all the time. And we don't know their stories. We don't know their lives. We don't know why people do what they do. It doesn't matter. Jesus doesn't tell us to analyze it first. He tells us to love them. And so we need to, as best as we're able, stop judging other people by our own means of judging ourselves. And that goes then back to selflessness and compassion. Pray for others. Pray for those you love. Pray for those you don't love. Pray for those you even maybe hate. That's what Jesus teaches us. Pray for those who persecute you. In other words, pray for everybody. And pray that God will bless them and guide us all into what it means to love each other. We can learn to drop our expectations of each other. We can learn what it means to accept each other. It doesn't mean that harmful behavior is acceptable, but what it means is if we take the judgmentalness out of it, we can take the condemnation out of it, and then we can deal with the problem and find a solution. But I can't tell you how you should live your life. I need to keep the focus on myself. And then the last thing is usually when I don't like somebody, or when we don't like somebody instantaneously, it's usually because we see something in them about us that we don't like about us. And so it's easier for me to not like you and to not love my neighbor than it is for me to face my inner demons and deal with me. So a couple of things to ponder on how we can learn to love our neighbor. And next week we'll talk about what it means to love ourselves. Have a good week, everybody.